graduated medicine. I mean, I started doing my course in medicine here at the University of São Paulo, actually the Federal University of São Paulo. And that's when I started having my first contact with environmental issues, because when I was doing my medical course, the medical school had like an agreement with the federal government to provide medical assistance to the indigenous population in central Brazil. As a medical student, I went to this park several times, providing vaccination to the Indians, sometimes medical care for sort of more complicated issues. We brought these guys back to São Paulo to the hospital here, and that was my first involvement in environmental issues. And when I finished my medical school, I applied for a master course at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. That's when I went there and did my master and followed by my PhD. And that's when exactly I started working on environment. I mean, air pollution was a big issue in São Paulo at that time. It's still an issue nowadays, but at that time was much worse and was really a concern for, large part of the population. And that was my subject for my master and PhD when I was in London. As I was interested in air pollution, I approached Tony Fletcher, who used to be a former president of ISEE, and he was my mentor, my supervisor for the whole PhD. So that's when I really got into the environmental epidemiology with him. And also Tony Michael, who was also another former president of ISEE. He was at the London School at that moment, and I interact with him several times as well. Tony Fletcher, in fact, I think both of us sort of started in ISEE together, because I learned about ISEE when I was doing my master at the London School. I think from a colleague who got me, the flyer of a conference in 1993 in Stockholm. That's why my first conference. And I went there and I found really exciting because my bibliographic references were all there, working on air pollution, and I saw, oh, they're all here. And I got really excited. So the next year, 1994, I went again for the conference, and then I submitted abstracts, and I got a poster that actually got a prize on that year. And then I started really interested because the society is quite friendly for young investigators, a student like myself at that time. The master course at London School is just 1 year, and most of it is classes. We have several classes, and you only have few time for writing a dissertation. And then I didn't have any data to work with, in terms of analyzing any data. So I did a literature review on air pollution, which was sort of a preparation for my PhD. So then on my PhD, I worked with air pollution from São Paulo, and I did a time series analysis of mortality and hospital admissions. So I came back to São Paulo for a few months to get all this data. And I remember by then, the air pollution data came on those computer tapes. A colleague of mine copied those files into flop disks, and then I worked with that data. When I finished my PhD, I came back. I had the possibility of staying in London for a little longer as a postdoc, but I thought that I was, too long away, and I came back to São Paulo, and I also had a possibility of a position here at the University of São Paulo. That's what I am now. And then I started working here at the University of São Paulo. 1999, I guess, was my first year here as a lecturer. But I kept my contacts with ISEE. I kept going to the conferences almost every year. But then I started teaching here, epidemiology, the epidemiological methods for graduate students. And then soon I started a course on environmental epidemiology for postgrad students. Of course, when I got back, I started working on air pollution because it was my main subject during my master and PhD. And there was quite a lot still to work on it. And I'm still doing some stuff on air pollution, different aspects. But yeah, after a few years, I was back here. I decided I need to open my horizons in terms of subjects, and I want to see or to study other environmental problems. So I did some work on electromagnetic fields. This was an opportunity that happened because people were interested on that subject, and we got funding. We organized a group of researchers doing this very large project on EMF, electromagnetic fields. I also did some work on water pollution. Well, this also happened because, I mean, as I was an environmental epidemiologist here at the medical school, I was invited to provide some, wasn't exactly consultancy, but to provide some advice to the Ministry of Health, Environmental Department at the Ministry of Health. So they were sort of organizing the environmental health surveillance systems for the whole Brazil. And then I was invited to provide some advice to the sort of establishment of this system. And then I got interested to other subjects, and one of them was water pollution, because they have a very large collection of data on water quality, not water pollution exactly, but water quality. This was mostly on piped water in terms of urban areas, but yeah, it's a very large system and very interesting, full of data. And then there has been some other environmental issues that got my attention, but most of them are really more related to air pollution. Not only air pollution measured by monitoring stations, but also by traffic. Using some traffic related indicators of air pollution, which has also been something that I've been interested in, and more recently with satellite measurements of air pollution. That's another area that I've been working the past years. Here, I mean, as I mentioned, I mean, I kept going to the conferences, the ISE conference, and then one thing that's really good about this society that I mentioned before, first is it's sort of very friendly approach with the young investigators or students, and also, I mean, the networking possibilities that it provides. Several nice colleagues, I mean, friends that we met over the years. And then it happens, like possibilities of collaborations. That's something else that happened, and I think it was important in my career. And one of them, was a Latin American contact that we developed during ISE conference, but with a funding agency, an American funding agency, the Health Impacts Institute. And then we got a funding for a Latin American project, the SCALA project, we call it, of air pollution in Latin America. And this was the first sort of regional air pollution study in Latin America, and was kind of, possible because we have this, this collaboration with colleagues from, several different countries, but also colleagues from US. And I think was possible because being on this network of very nice environmental epidemiologists. And apart from being at the conference, presenting works, abstracts and stuff, my main involvement started with sort of trying to reorganize the Latin American chapter. I remember this was, I think, at the Buffalo meeting. I remember we have a very large Latin American, audience on that meeting, and then we have a separate meeting. Then we discussed that we had, there was a Latin American chapter by then, but it was sort of dormant for a few years. And then I sort of got the mission of building up this Latin American chapter again. And then myself and Mildred Maisonette, I think we both started this, endeavor together in terms of trying to contact people, making a list of colleagues from Latin America, advertising the society or the conferences, the annual conference in our local conferences here in Brazil. And then sort of like an ambassador of the Latin American chapter of the ISEE. And then I think I start, other involvements that I got in almost every year. When I went to the annual conference, I was at the council meetings, and then I got approached to the policy committee, and then I started taking part of the policy committee and participating in their meetings, in the side meetings during the conference. And more recently, I got elected as a counselor. So I'm in my last year of my counselor position. When I started attending this conference back then, first, all my bibliographic references were there, but I never thought I would be sort of running a conference myself. And that happened in 2015, when I brought a conference to São Paulo. That involved almost 2 years of preparation, which was quite an experience, very, very interesting, but also very, tiring at the same time. It's quite a lot of responsibility, bringing people from all over the world to come here and, having a conference, but was really, really satisfying. everything went well. In terms of the society, I mean, I can see, I mean, as I've been, going to these meetings and participating in the society for such a long time, I can see, I mean, the society itself grows a lot in the past years. This is good. I mean, that's not only more people involved, but we have more chapters. Previously, we had the Latin American chapter, and then after, I think, the European or Eastern European chapter, but now we have the African chapter, North American chapter. So the society is growing, which is good. One thing that is important about the society, you have this. I mean, the science is very sort of serious science, and most of the people, or all of the ones that go to this conference, they are very very committed to this, to the science they are producing, and that's what matters. And the society itself, I think, it sort of helps putting those voices in terms of influencing policymakers or big decision makers all over the world in terms of deciding what to do or to drive our our world in a better path. And one thing that I believe, I mean, is very important, because then you are always bringing new investigators, new people that are with fresh ideas into the society, and that's what makes the society keep growing and growing as it is growing. Don't feel nervous. Just go for it. Because people don't bite. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to exchange ideas, to get to know people, and sometimes, besides of this, the science, which is very important, we might get a friendship, which is also very important nowadays. It's a very friendly place for us to be in terms of as a scientific society. You can not only exchange scientific ideas, plans, collaborations, but you can also have a friendly atmosphere to discuss any other subjects, which is always good.